Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to today's video. We're doing JMA Friday today, having a look at the weather coming up. I'm very late with today's video, so I won't talk about anything else. I'll just get on with the update. We're going to look at the Japanese model for the coming month. This takes us into March, can you believe, just into the start of a new month. We'll also have a look at the CFS V2 as well. So I sound very late with today's video, so I'll just get on with it. We're going to start off with 500 millibar height anomalies for the coming week. These are broken down into weekly periods from the Japanese model, the JMA. The first week is for the week that we're in, the 5th through to the 12th of February. So blue extrapolates to low pressure, yellow, orange, red extrapolates to high pressure. So for the coming month, we've got a deep trough of coming week, I should say. We've got a deep trough of low pressure sitting right over the top of the country. Jet stream going a bit like that. We're almost on the cold side of a jet there, so I think it will be a bit colder, particularly next week, and there could be some wintry potential up in the north, but the main thing is very unsettled. Could be bouts of heavy rain down in the south, and also strong winds as well. The strongest winds could be transferring south through the course of the week, so increasingly wet, stormy down in the south, maybe a chance of something wintry up in the north later next week. Week 2 takes us from the 12th through to the 19th of February. For this one, it's still unsettled, but the trough of low pressure is generally lifting out to the west a little bit, a ridge building up from the south. But jet stream is pushing northwards ever so slightly as well. So that's still quite unsettled, particularly for the north. And it could also be a little bit milder. I would think the jet stream is pushing a bit further northwards on that one. So still unsettled, but probably not as unsettled as next week will be, but still unsettled for the 12th through to 19th of February. And a bit milder as well. And then we go through to weeks 3 and 4, this going from the 19th of February through to the 4th of March, and it's still looking very unsettled into the end of the month. We've got a trough of low pressure still more or less centred over the top of the country. I think the jet stream's going further southwards as well, so it could be starting to entrance some colder air into this trough, particularly from Greenland, the northern part of the Atlantic. It still isn't a classic cold setup. We've still not got classic sort of northern blocking up here, bleeding proper Arctic air down into the mid-latitudes, so it's not a severe spell, but it is probably quite cool that with the air revolving around that trough coming out of Greenland and Iceland, that sort of region. So unsettled for the second half of February and probably quite cool as well. That's the JMA. Let's have a look at the CFS V2. So we've got the 500 millibar heights here, broke down again into weekly periods. Same idea as the JMA really. Blue extrapolates to low pressure, green, red and yellow, orange extrapolates to high pressure. So again, this is for the coming week. First of all, this is the 5th through to the 11th of February, and it's virtually identical to the JMA, really. Deep trough of low pressure centred more or less around the country, and then we've got this ridging out to the west and down to the southwest as well, means that the jet stream going something like that. Increasingly unsettled through the course of the coming week, quite stormy at times, potentially risk of gale force winds, heavy rain, and possibly colder air digging in to the northern part of the country also. The second week, now this is when the JMA wants to lift that trough out to the west a little bit. The CFS V2 actually keeps it centred right on top of the country. So this again, very, very unsettled for the middle part of the month. This is the 12th to the 18th of February. Very unsettled conditions. We've got a little bit of northern blocking there as well, with a little bit of red centred over the top of the pole, and that could be entrenching some colder air into this trough of low pressure. We'll have to see exactly where and how that blocking's set up, but there's a fair amount of red there stretched out from Greenland and going over the top of the North Pole. That could just be from that southern stratospheric warming event that's going to be taking place over the weekend. So, but for the middle part of the month anyway, very unsettled and potentially fairly cool as well. This is week 3. This is going from the 19th to the 25th of February. A more normalised pattern here. Trough of low pressure around Iceland and a strong ridge down across Spain. So it means that the jet stream probably coming more or less through the coast. So it's still unsettled, but it's driest in the south, wettest up in the north. But it's a westerly flow here. Probably not all that cold, really, with such strong ridging down across Spain. I think we'd be pulling up some milder air out of the central part of the Atlantic Ocean there from the 19th to 25th of February. And then finally we go through to the end of the month, inside of March. This is the 26th of February through to the 3rd of March. Still unsettled, but that trough is weakening around Greenland and Iceland, and this ridge is increasingly building up from the south. So this could be a little bit of a taste of spring here if this was to come off like this. I have to say, there's no sign of this sudden stratospheric warming event that I've been talking about recently possibly bring us some colder weather towards the end of February and into the start of March. There's no sign of that having any influence at all, really. Certainly to the start of March, anyway. And this turns things really quite mild, I think, to the end of February and into the start of March, with that ridge building up from the Azores and Spain. I reckon that could be a little bit of an early taste of spring there for the very end of the month and into the start of spring. Let's have a look at the temperatures for the coming month. So this is week 1, the 5th to the 11th. A milder than average week coming up there. Week 2, this is one that looked a bit colder. You'll remember I said that the blocking, you get a little bit of blocking in this week, 12th to the 18th. I said that could just be feeding some colder air into the trough. And this is a colder week. It isn't particularly cold by any means, but temperatures have dropped down to average, and of course that's going to feel quite cold compared to what we've been used to through most of this winter. So a bit of a colder snap indicated there around the middle part of February, the 12th through to the 18th. But we go through to week 3, the 19th to the 25th, and we go milder than average again. And then week 4, the 26th of February through to the 3rd of March. Remember I said this looked like a little bit of a taste of spring, and indeed that is what CFSV2 is predicting, with very significantly milder than average temperatures then. Rainfall looks like this. The coming week you would expect it to be unsettled, and a wetter than average week is indicated. Week 2 looks very wet indeed. Precipitation from the 12th to the 18th significantly above average, particularly wet down to the south and the southeast of the country. Interestingly, that is indicative of some colder air getting into the north, so it won't be as wet in the north, but colder and wettest down in the south. So this week, the 12th to the 18th, this is probably the one to keep an eye on. Possibly some wintry conditions there, possibly even coming down into the south of the country. We go through to week 3. That's week 2, sorry, the 12th to the 18th. Not sure if I said that. Week 3 is the 19th to the 25th of February. That one looks a bit wetter than average, but not as wet as week 2, if you see what I mean. And then we finally end up in week 4, the 26th of February through to the 3rd of March. Not as wet, turning a bit dry. You notice dry on average around Spain and Portugal and the Azores. That's from that strong ridge building up from the south. This is all indications possibly of a very mild end to February and start to March, with an early taste of spring. So that's how the JMA and the CFS are seeing things for the coming month. I think the middle part of February could be the week possibly that offers something colder, wintry potential for the north, maybe even a little bit down in the south. After that, and also fairly short-lived, and after that we go through to the end of February, possibly with a taste of spring. But remember, these long-range models are all highly experimental. They're not to be relied upon, so any update that goes beyond, say, 5 to 7 days really is just speculation and just for fun. So don't take things too seriously in these longer-range look-aheads. But that's how things are looking this week from the JMA and CFSV2. Tomorrow, we're going to be doing weekend forecast, so come back for that. Going to be a very unsettled week coming up. But that's all for now, and thanks for watching.